So you want to build a trampoline park, hey?
We get this a lot, usually by someone that just wants to hang out with their kids and have this fun business, and it's going to be so easy. And
You also get it a lot right during the busiest 4 busiest weeks of the year, which is Christmas, reading week, Easter week, and there's one of their school break in there. People come in, they see it packed, and they think, man, this thing doesn't seem that complicated. Looks like it makes a bunch of money. I can make one of these. And then it usually never fails. Every break, we get at least a request, generally out of each park.
well, it makes sense. I mean, that's how kind of the industry came about. Was there was one or two parks, and people started walking into these places and going, "Wow, these are packed." And you start doing the mental math. It's like, "Oh, these guys must be making lots of money," and not knowing the other side of the equation. And don't get me wrong, like there's a successful business there. It's like any other business. It comes with its challenges. It comes with its perks. And there's some things to consider. So we figure that's what, rather than tell countless people every year, we just do a quick podcast on it.
Yeah, not to like sure, we don't want a guy opening next door to us, but we also build trampoline
That'd be
parks.
fun. Game on. Let's do it.
So it's not to come and discouraging on that side to be anti-competitive, because we also build parks for a manufacturing side, so we have that going for us as well. We make money when someone wants to build a trampoline park, assuming they use us or our vendors that we work. I guess to date, we mostly just build our own internal facilities commercially. We support a couple other facilities.
We build them for other people, but it's usually through someone or through a design partner. And
Yeah.
But
yeah, we do all the trampoline rooms and all the direct to consumer stuff, I suppose. But when it's another park, or that's what we've traditionally worked through another company. But we built all our own stuff. Everything behind you is Crazy Ape installed. So.
Yeah, and just to give the background, like we're one of the few vertically integrated guys that are left, that we do everything for our own Apex line of facilities. We do everything from design through construction and procurement to the location and operation when it's open. So,
and it started baby steps. We started this in 2012. We started pioneering the equipment for the first trampoline park that we built for ourselves. And then it started out with just trampolines, and then it was like, well, we need some wall padding over here. So we built that. And then we needed some crash pads.
No, let's be clear. It was like, hey, let's build this first facility that was 16,000 square feet in Saskatoon. And what next? Let's do a 50,000 square foot facility in Vancouver at the same time. Which, I mean, at the time, most parks were 20, 30,000 square feet.
40, yeah.
So this was a park that was 7 years ahead of its time. Unfortunately, no longer with us. It was a victim of COVID. But that's been where we've gone with in the industry, is everything from these trampoline parks to the bubble soccer that's behind us, the ninja course on the other side. There's a number of different attractions that these places typically have in them.
Well, this is kind of our Phoenix park, because something that was unique with Vancouver, when we lost the lease, basically had to come out there 2 weeks, clean out all of our stuff. We cleaned out that 50,000 square foot park in 2.5 weeks in 7 full shipping containers. And we got to repurpose 90% of it because it was a modular construction.
And so the relevant point here, I think we could easily touch on, is the hey, I found this for sale and it's super cheap. Should I buy it? Or I'm going to go buy it. And so we've been through that before. We've lived it firsthand. We've gone and bought other people's equipment before, gone in and torn it out. But yeah, I guess it is a fun industry and it is a fun business. And like this one we have in our hometown, and I love bringing my kids here. It's an absolute blast. So there's definitely some perks.
Your wife finally believes what you do. So
yeah, well, that's exactly it. We used to have businesses all over the place except for at home. So we'd have to go on an airplane with the kids to let them enjoy the family business. And it just seemed like I was going to work all the time. So now our family's here all the time. My kids are here all the time. All the staff know my kids. They're the little craps that go running around the facility without wristbands on, but everyone knows who they are, so they get away with it. It's just, I don't know. There are pros to it. It's fun. There's also the late night phone calls when something doesn't work. Hey, the stereo system's down, or hey, this won't work, or hey, the building just flooded. Like you get all those.
We were in Salt Lake City at a trade show for our residential stuff. And yeah, right down here, like the party room, all of a sudden water's gushing in because, well, we had some really nice weather all of a sudden, and then freezing, and then nice weather again. So everything started melting after all the gutters froze, and then everything, right?
Backed up. It was groundwater basically coming into the building. So, or the issues in Saskatoon, we've had the same thing in the last few months. Like these things happen out of nowhere and almost constantly. So your phone is basically on. We actually shut down on Christmas Day, and it is one thing I've been very, very, very loud spoken about. We shut down on Christmas Day because it's the one day a year my phone doesn't ring, and it's amazing. So there's that con to it. Also, our parks are busy when kids are off school. So when you want to go on a family break, family holiday, or whatnot, like, sorry, that's when your business is busy. Like, you want to go to Mexico for spring break? Oh, that's your main selling season for the year.
Yeah.
So there's those trade-offs that sometimes people don't take for granted.
Well, it's like
So
a ski hill
they
too.
do take for granted. Yeah.
When you go, it seems busy because you're going when you have time off, which is when everyone else has time off. So
Well, we find this with our general managers. It's often a challenge. If you want a GM that wants your typical schedule, like, sorry, that doesn't work. You can't work Monday to Friday because the business is busy evenings and weekends. So
yeah, we experienced that early on. Our first GM was like taking this weekend off, taking this week. He was a popular guy, lots of weddings to do. Was a big hockey guy, lots of hockey tournaments too, and it was like every weekend it was like something else, and it's like, dude, we gotta we're constantly filling in, and we got to be working on the next park. But
like, what if we jump to the data here? Like, what would we say minimum dollar per square foot someone would want to invest? And like, I don't know, we would say like $40 a square foot. Like, if you're not spending $40 a square foot on equipment, you probably shouldn't be buying it at all.
no, it's like mid-50s US.
For some of the demand, like some of the international stuff that might be a higher quality, like you might find it in that 40 range, and this is at 2025 pricing kind of thing. But typical market rate for domestic stuff is mid 50s right now per square foot.
Yeah.
And that's just for your recreational equipment. So that's not your TIs and your fit outs. And so there's a cost element to building these places as well. I think a lot of the online franchise listings will tell you you're going to spend about $2 to $3 million to build a park.
Yeah, for sure. Like for a 25 to 40,000 square foot park, yeah, you're probably 3-4 million.
So, and this is like irrespective. Like, you start getting into the weeds of figuring out what attractions you want to put in a park, and you find the true answer for what it's going to cost you. But you're going to be ballparking 1.5 on a smaller park, up to 3 million. I mean, some of the bigger parks are way more. Like, we're doing a park down in Florida right now for 100,000 square feet in a mega mall. So sweet spot is probably that 20,000 on the small side, which is this park behind us in a small market. Up to 50,000 square feet is a lot more common nowadays.
Yeah.
So, I mean, not to just get super serious super fast, but that's the rubber hits the road. That's what these things are costing. And that, yeah, that's one of the biggest requests we get for information is
Yeah,
just
what's
how
it
much it's going to
yeah.
cost.
And that's the build out stage. There's also the carrying cost of the lease during the build out stage. Not that it doesn't need to be a very complicated business to build out if you've got all your ducks in a row and your leaseholds are, if you get your, I'd say for most people that are engaging a landlord, they're going to want the landlord to do a lot of the works first. Because the big thing with this is you're going to an assembly space, and a lot of these places are born out of industrial spaces, maybe retail, but all those are very low. Usually, especially for bathrooms. Bathrooms is a big thing.
Yeah.
So you're going to find your space might have 4 bathrooms in it, and you might need 15. So
Well, we've looked at multiple sites at acquiring their building with the full intention of, if we do fulfill their purchase, ripping everything out and basically acquiring them just for the development permit, or just for the fact that they have a building permit that's been closed and they've been rezoned for assembly use, is what we call it up here in Canada. But I know that's a huge problem, especially you get to the major centers. We had a hell of a time in Vancouver.
yeah,
Vancouver was not fun. Oh man, those guys are strict. Like, we spent over $100,000 on consultants, between code consultants, architects, engineers, whatnot.
well, we're in the middle of doing it again right now. We're going back to the market, so it's
Yeah.
we've been fighting on a space, and there's a couple others that we're looking at, and it's like, hey, but we started off with all the code consultants, all the experts.
And like, these are guaranteed expenses. If you're going into one of these bigger markets, like the site we did in Vancouver was an IKEA. Like, this wasn't a bargain basement. This wasn't a grungy warehouse. Like, this was a top class building held by and owned by IKEA. IKEA actually occupied the building, and they own the building until they sold it to the people we rented it from. So they're not the type of guys to cut corners.
Yeah, beware if your leasing group is based out of a different time zone than you.
Yeah. Oh, we could do a whole segment on private equity involvement and stuff like that. But it's just something to be aware of, is the rezoning and the development permit process will be an absolute nightmare. So just be prepared for that. Everyone goes through it. It's just something you do. But you'll know how much work it is once you get into the thick of it. They're going to test you for things like seismic upgrading and things like that. Once you take a retail or an industrial building and convert it to assembly or public use, they throw the book at you, and they take whatever you have, they want it upgraded to the nines because you're putting families in there. So
Buy your local fire chief a beer if you can.
yeah, well, and
That's
we usually go and sit with them, meet with them.
Yeah.
So without being prompted, it's just being proactive and talking to them and finding out what they're going to want. Same with doing a code check. Some states, some provinces regulate these types of attractions and some don't. More and more are starting to, and they're never going to go backwards. So it's only going to get tighter. But more and more areas are starting to regulate these things. So, and that just brings in just thresholds you're going to have to jump through. So if you go and buy international equipment, you got to make sure you can jump through the hurdles that you're going to have to, because your local building inspector isn't going to care about your sob story. They're going to want to see the fire certificate. So, well, they're going to want to see the structural inspection or engineer stamps. And
if you're some big corporate entity that's got a lot of money behind you that can sit on your lease for the next few months while the stuff gets figured out, or potentially rip out a bunch of equipment to put in sprinklers under the courts, great. If you're just a ragtag couple that want to throw this together and do this fun thing for your community, that can break your company. That can put you under.
well, frequently these places are holding $20,000 to $50,000 to $100,000 leases, and your carrying costs can add up quite considerably, because that's not your utilities, that's not your insurance or anything. That's strictly your lease payment every month. And speaking of the sprinklers under court, so these are things we've heard about people getting stuck with. We luckily haven't on any of our builds yet. We've been able to proactively talk to the consultants and the officials ahead of time. Vancouver wanted us to do that. We had to talk them through that. And again, you're sitting at a table with this town's representatives, the city representatives, and your consultants, who are all charging $200 to $500 an hour. Well, you try and talk about why you don't need to put sprinklers underneath your trampolines. So the costs do add up. I've heard of someone having to put a 6-inch water line over top of their foam pit, because foam cubes are highly flammable.
Yeah.
So there's some considerations to make there, and just making sure you're doing your due diligence before you get into that situation.
Yeah.
Foam pits is another one worth talking about. Like, those are definitely on their way out the door. They're technically still allowed.
Probably back up just in terms of if you're like big considerations, insurance, because you just mentioned that. Like if there was a time when you couldn't even get an insurance unless you had an existing facility that was insured. I think it's backed off a little bit from that. You deal with the insurance side, but like
it's still very tight. There's only 2 people currently in Canada writing policies. So
I don't think the States is much better.
No, the States isn't much better. I think there's 3, but still on a ratio basis, it's not great. So it's a tight market. You definitely want to know what you're doing going into that, or going into the industry, or have a partner there with you, whether that's a franchise organization or other partners or that type of thing.
I think part of that was just that a lot of people they just thought it was a good idea and they got into it and they got in way over their heads, because the trampoline parks exploded from like 100 parks in the US in maybe 2012 to 1,000 by the end of the decade. And a lot of those don't exist anymore. They were put together by poorly constructed equipment. They weren't safe. They got sued out of their space, like whatever happened, or they didn't survive COVID. But it's not something to take lightly. Something you definitely do want to take your due diligence on. So
yeah, and the proof's like right out there too. Like, if anyone's curious about it, go join some of the Facebook groups for the FEC community or equipment for sale in the FEC community, and you'll see left, right, and center people ripping out attractions and oftentimes removing trampolines. And
Tyler Ferrello's video, how I bought a 40,000 square foot trampoline park for $1.
Yeah, it happens. So, and it's partially the cost of returning the space to an empty vacant building is tremendous.
Yeah, and out of that entire park, what's the one thing he still has?
Yeah,
it's his 14 by 14 string like gymnastics bed. And we know that because we built them a frame and a set of pads for outdoor sets. So, because that was, you had to throw basically everything else away. So
Yeah.
he got a viral YouTube video out of it and won $10,000 US jumping surface. And then it was an expensive bet if you had to pull a whole park apart for that. But
He's a younger guy, so his labor must be cheap. So, but no, it's a lot of work to rip out one of these old trampoline parks, and it's even more work to put it back into use. I could go on for a while on that. We both could, on just making sure the manufacturer is available for the original equipment, and it starts getting into a standards conversation of, are you doing a major modification of the equipment? Because if so, well, you need to engage the original manufacturer. So there's a bunch of issues there. That's probably easier as if we just have a conversation with someone based on the parameters. But say someone's looking to buy an old trampoline court, and then just telling them not to do it.
well, if, like, for example, like, we pulled apart our Vancouver location and we started our equipment was designed to be modular. It all comes apart into raw components. It was all bolt together design. And it was all built, I guess, just one step back, is we started, like, no one in Canada regulates trampoline parks yet. Not even that many places in the States do, but our standard goes back to, our equipment goes back to being based on the F2970-13. So the 2970 standard from model of 2013. And we've updated it as it's gone by, but we've been building it to that spec for over a decade. Even though we never put it into a market that required it. But ours has that backwards compatibility, and then when we pulled it all out, we designed it to be modular too. It was engineered to be modular, so we could take apart those pieces and reconfigure them. And they're still good. They still meet the code. Now, we reused our structure. Everything sewn, we redid when we built this park. So,
and this took us 2 weeks to do. Like, we flew out to Vancouver with a full team during COVID, rented an entire house so we could quarantine in that house, kind of thing.
right.
And we tore through that park. And it was about a 2-week process. 7 40-foot high cube shipping containers packed to the doors, liquidating anything we didn't need just to reduce storage volume.
Yeah, the one thing in that park we didn't build was the rock wall. We built all the padding for it, but the rock wall was built in place by a third-party contractor. And that was the only thing we had to rip out of there that we had to throw away.
Nah, yeah, that's not on Vancouver Island, though. It got repurposed.
Oh, sorry, the one little wall.
Yeah.
The huge, big, epic wall. The little traverse wall, that was fine. That was small enough that they could cut it apart in chunks. But the big one that was built in site,
that was the prow, the Red Bull style, free climbing over an airbag with no harness, no nothing.
Yeah,
that was a sweet wall.
That was sweet.
So speaking to the Vancouver experience of ripping out that equipment, like, we knew what we were doing because we built that equipment and we built a facility. So we were very familiar with it. We were aware of what standards it would meet at today's time. And we knew there wasn't going to be deficiencies. That's something you'll find if you go and rip out an old trampoline court that you don't know the history on. It might not be compliant to today's standards. And some of these courts, for example, were built lower to the ground. Yep. So if that's no longer height compliant for ASTM because they weren't regulated at the time, well, now you got to figure out how to take this 10,000 square foot trampoline structure and raise it up. Or maybe it wasn't built with redundant beds. Well, now you need to find OEM equivalent redundant beds. So some of these things you want to know about before you get into financially committing to buying a structure.
Okay, so that's a bunch of scary stuff. Now, what's another one is going to be like, is your market going to be able to support it?
That's a good one. We get that a lot.
We've had some recent people come to us that have very, very small markets.
Everyone wants to build a 5,000 square foot park nowadays. I think it's just comfortably what they feel they can financially bite off.
The problem there is going to be like insurance isn't scaled. There's like a huge minimum, a huge floor you have to get past, or a huge ceiling you have to get past, and then it's scaled.
Well, so very loose ballparks, throw $100,000 out there. If you're in the Canadian market, you're going to be spending $100,000 a year on insurance.
And it's how much up front?
Well, then there's the minimum insured portion, and if there is a claim, you're on the hook for the first portion of it. There's a whole bunch of honestly very scary caveats that come in there. So you'll want to have a call with your insurance broker just to figure that out before you get into a commitment stage. The American market's very similar. Premium is a little bit lower. I've heard around 80,000. These are all just very loose ballparks. Like, throw those in there as a pencil number and refine your numbers when you get down to it. But just talking straight to it, like, be prepared for it. So
that's the insurance side. But then, yeah, like, can your community support, like, so these little ones, it's hard. yes, you have less upfront cost. You have a smaller lease payment because you have a small facility, but you have some certain big things. Like you still have to have a general manager unless it's going to be you. But you got to pay yourself, and then insurance. Insurance is probably the biggest
Yeah.
biggest kick in the teeth for a small
Well, it's
place if
just
you use trampolines.
it's the reality for all these guys that come to us wanting to build a 5 or 6,000 square foot park. Like, sorry, when you run the numbers and you plug insurance in, it's going to be a deal breaker. You would have to run a highly efficient park and everything to work out to make that work financially. It'd be very difficult. So, and that's why most of the parks we're seeing on the low side are 20,000 square feet.
Yeah, I'm not to say you can't do it. It's just like, do you want to do it with the risk and make money? If you don't want to make money, just then it doesn't really matter.
Run a park like we do.
We're building the manufacturing. The manufacturing has been like the wimpy kid that had to stay on mom's teat for 10 years, but it's almost there. It's this is the year.
Yeah. Well, and you got to be prepared to carry it. Like, that was one of the reasons we closed down the Vancouver site. Like, over COVID, we didn't know when it could reopen. And when your burn rate's over $100,000 a month, it's a pretty quick decision.
That one was like $200 a month.
It was disgusting.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a painful experience, but that's some of the side that not everyone sees when they come to one of these parks with their kids and their family, and they go, "Oh, this would be great. Let's just go invest in one of these and let's open one of these up." There is that other side to it. So, also the lawsuit side. We've been very, very fortunate, like, knock on wood. We try to run our businesses a little bit differently. We're not very profit focused. We're more experience focused and trying to push the boundaries of how things can be done properly. We haven't been victim of a major lawsuit or subject to one. But I know that's the exception in the industry.
If you fly loose and you're just like, get people in the door, get the money, and don't worry about the other side of it, like that's you've been incredibly focused. I've been super dialed in on the equipment. You've been super dialed in the whole overall experience and all the liability and signage, and for a good point, our signage is what's in the ASTM standard for signage, right?
Yeah. So Alan's put it forth in a new ASTM signage standard for adventure attractions. So
we're a little guy. We're a few parks. We've been around for a long time though, and Luke's been incredibly involved in the trampoline, the board, and the ASTM standards. So
when our team's been brought in on all that too, and like John's really helped out with the signage over the last 7 years now. We were looking back to, he's actually flying out in a few days to do and so this is one of the things we're doing. John, one of the experts that we deal with on risk management and signage is flying in. Not for any particular reason other than proactively review our signage and say, hey, it's been a year. Let's just drop everything and review all our signage and review our park, see if there's any gaps in our policies and procedures, and just we're constantly working to make things better. And then I'm taking up to Saskatoon and we're doing the same thing there, getting boots on the ground at our operating locations, just making sure they run as tight as possible. And like the marketing guys and I were joking earlier, because it's like we're changing a semicolon to a period, and these like very, very subtle things. Very rarely do we come across like a holy crap, we got to fix this. It's always super subtle little changes. So
we have the luxury of being there now because we've invested heavily in it, and it's not reflected. You don't have a Porsche.
Yeah,
we don't have a wakeboard boat, but we have a safe park. So, and equipment that's really rigorously vetted.
I have the peace of mind, like when my kids come here, like my office is up on the second floor and my kids are out there, and I'm not going, oh crap, or we're down in the States and my kids are at a birthday party at our park, and yeah, it's the same thing. I'm not freaking out worried because we try to do things the right way, but that comes with a cost, that comes with time commitment, and there's a lot to it. So
nothing's free.
Yeah,
the cost is there somewhere. So we would just rather be on the upfront side and not like recovering from some major calamity or someone that got injured, something like that. So
it's so much easier to be proactive. Yeah.
We missed the population size for a park.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah. So now you're getting back to like minimum 20,000 square foot for a facility. What kind of population base needs to support that? Because we've always been the guys that have put parks in
smaller places,
in centers that people mostly overlook. So
yeah. Well, even so Regina that we're in now, was our population now 250,
275, something like that.
Yeah. Saskatoon's about the same.
Yeah.
Kamloops is very small, but it's kind of in the middle of nowhere.
It's the tournament hub. It's funny. It still drives 80% of the traffic. The walk, there's a higher return rate in that place. It's in a mall, but yeah, it's surprising. It's a powerhouse for what it is.
But cutting to the chase, like if your town doesn't have 250,000 people or it's not drawing 250,000 people, like sorry, it's not big enough. You're really, really going to be stretching it if you're not at a comfortable 250,000. On in most parks, like you talk to franchises, they're looking at 400,000 minimum.
Yeah.
In multiple parks, like you're talking multiples of 400,000. So there's 800,000 people in the city. Yeah, you can probably handle 2 parks.
Yeah.
So
the other cold hard truth is attendance rate. So now this is based on, this was like Sky Zone or something that did this over the course of like 6 or 7, quite a long time period. And they have 100, 200 locations. So they did this for. They were primarily in industrial spaces, but they would have had the best mix of things. This is early on. But wasn't it 1.4? The average person visits the park 1.4 times a year.
Yeah, it's not what people would expect. People aren't coming here once a month.
Yeah. So
it's kind of like a trip to an amusement park. You go once or twice a year.
Yeah. So 1.4 times an average in the door price of $20. That's $28 per person per year. How many customers in your city do you have? Do you have 100,000 customers? If so, maybe you'll get 2.8 million. But are you going to have 100,000? Because again, your age range isn't everybody. You might think it's everybody, but it's not. You've got those 6 to 14-year-olds, really 8 to 12, 6 to 12.
6 to 12, yeah.
And then you get the fringes. When you first open your doors, if you were a trampoline park 10 years ago, yeah, you had all the teens and the young adults and the college kids coming out because it was the cool, hot new thing. But then they get bored of it because they've done it a couple times and then they're gone. And then the kids that were those 6 to 12-year-olds are now growing up, but they've already done it a bunch of times. And it's not cool anymore because all the 6 to 12-year-olds do it. So it boils down to that, how many 6 to 12-year-olds are in your demographic area? And then how many of those do you think are actually going to be trampoline park kids? Not everyone is going to be. Not everyone's parents can let them go.
We've heard lots of people, lots of business pitches. They want to chase something other than the 6 to 12-year-old demographic, and they're allergic to money. Because that's when you build one of these parks, like that's your market is 6 to 12-year-olds. Like even now, you might overhear like a birthday party checking in on a weekday afternoon, and it'll be kids in that 6 to 12-year-old demographic. So very rarely do we see corporate events or really young children, like the toddler time type thing.
Remember fitness classes?
Oh yeah, not a good idea. The dodgeballs, that was the other one. We wanted to do a dodgeball league. Amazing. One of our best marketing promos ever was this promo video for a dodgeball tournament, and no one showed up. I think we had 1 or 2 teams sign up. Everyone wanted to talk about it. Everyone thought, hey, this is gonna be great.
It's great. They'll share it.
Yeah, but then when it comes time to actually sign up, very few teenagers are interested in committing every week to come for a dodgeball league.
Yeah.
So these things that you find out kind of as you got a park open. So who are the guys that there was one unique exception. I don't know how well they do, but I know their social media has taken off. We built their park down in the States. It's the red bulldog one.
Yeah, crap. Victory. Yeah.
Yeah. So Victory Gym or Victory Sports, they were a
Illinois,
gymnastics club.
Chicago.
Yeah. Huge social media following. The videos are getting 50, 60,000 views.
Yeah, Shock Trampoline Systems built the park. We supplied all the softens, like all the beds, the pads, springs.
Yeah, they did a high performance wall running area. They did our obstacle course on trampolines. They've got a massive Ninja Warrior course. They've got a ton of stuff in their slides.
Yeah.
It's a really cool facility. But that started off as a gymnastics club, mainly going after gymnastics industry, thinking they'd add this in, layer it on. It's never really taken off for them. They make a lot of great viral content, but they miss that 6 to 12-year-old demographic that is the bread and butter for our industry.
Yeah, it's tough because if you get the older kids, it's for a training thing. And yes, you got the frequency, but you've got a way smaller subset of the population. And you need specific coaching and on all that kind of side to tailor courses to it. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. Then they're more like a Tempest or a Woodward in one kind of sense. Yeah. So you'll see there's these fringes on the industry that are more that pro training fringe, and they're a totally different business model. So as you look into a family entertainment center, you're really that, like you were saying, that 1.4, 1.5 times per year getting people through the door. So.
And yeah, we've seen malls do like our personal experience. The industry as a whole has shifted towards more retail commercial spaces rather than the old industrial big box store that they were big box building that they got for cheap. Because at a place like this, your biggest expenses are your rent, your insurance, and your staff. Like the experience it's just the wear and tear on the equipment after and your payments on the equipment. But yeah, so like going to, for those where it had to be a destination off in the boonies to now being a front and center focal retail hub where you can drop the kids off, go get groceries, pick them up, which is what we have in our Kamloops facility. And we'd have to double check our numbers, but I'm sure
They're higher.
they're much
Yeah, we're
higher.
getting more return visitors, and I'm sure the marketing guys in the background are probably
Yeah.
upset over us
You
telling you some of these numbers, but yeah.
you pay for it on the per square foot and the op costs, definitely. But then you get things you don't struggle with often, the industrial size or sites like bad parking and things like that. So the other thing is this facility is busy Friday night through Sunday afternoon for the most part.
Yeah.
You can fill it with other things, but for the most part, you're going to do your deals during the week to drive a little bit of traffic and to also appease people that want a deal. But otherwise, you got, apart from the weekends, you've got those 4 big weeks a year where kids are off school. The couple stat holidays that are not really like family focused, like Thanksgiving is never as big for us, say, as a Remembrance Day or Veterans Day. Because that's a holiday where it's like, you're not traveling to grandma's house to the big turkey dinner. It's like, no, everyone's just off work. You want to do something with the kids. And then for us in Canada, summer is just May 1st, traffic falls off. You make your money between mid-September and Easter. And then it's outdoors. You can go outside again. So, and then kids sports, like summer sports take off. And then summer, all the kids go away so you don't have birthday parties, which are a major driver of revenue in the winter. And then you pick back up in the fall again, but it's still nice out. All the kids reconvene. You got all your outdoor sports again. And then it isn't until it gets cold and snows on the ground that you really see the birthday parties and the uptick in like weekend traffic again. So that's again where people come in, like just from the start of the conversation where it's like we get the requests for trampoline parks without fail after a really busy week. Those are your few times a year where you put money in the bank. That's where you make your money. Is those few weekends, because there's months where you pay to stay open.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I frequently tell people we lose money during the week and we make up for it in the weekends.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of gambling. It's kind of like farming in a sense.
Yeah, it is like farming. It's just
So, and then you have the high fixed costs like you were speaking to. So it's interesting. It is fun. I'm not gonna lie. It's a fun industry to be in. But yeah, it comes with its ups and downs. So we never did talk about foam pits and airbags. That's one that I would like to personally touch on. On the standard side, the consensus is we are moving away from foam pits. So you're going to see less and less foam pits getting built. You're going to see more airbags getting put in. So if you're looking to acquire an old facility or you're looking to build a new facility, probably want to stay away from foam because it's on its way out the door anyway. So
airbags,
cleanliness, fire rating, the list goes on and on.
Many things. Well, especially now airbags have gotten past the set it and forget it mentality, because you can't forget about them. You can forget about them for a couple months if they're set up right, but then they break in, they wear down. You have to adjust the pressure. And now there's pressure monitors, which really dumb that down and take a lot of that, the nuance out of that side and the risk out of that side. So
yeah, there's some exciting things with airbag technology. And honestly, if someone has a question about opening a new park, like going to the International Association of Trampoline Parks, they've now rebranded to Adventure Parks. Going to IAPA down in Orlando. There's an FEC summit going on in Las Vegas right now. That's typically every March. There's lots of different expos and trade shows you can go to meet vendors, meet contractors, and meet operators and ask people about these questions.
I would also carry on by that by saying, like, trampoline park is a bit of a misnomer nowadays. Even the park behind us, trampolines probably account for less than a third of the attractions out there. They count for everything from the arcade, Redemption arcades, like battle beams with gel sticks, to bubble soccer and cliff jumping, silks. We got a new ropes course, and not a traditional like clip-in ropes course. It's like the ropes, like a Tarzan type course that we're putting in our parks, and obstacle runs and ninja, everything, like all that stuff is now really taken over. And it's good because I think trampoline parks get a bit of a stigma with schools and groups and things like that don't want to risk injuries, but now you have a lot more to do, a lot more people engage, and a lot more to appeal to a wider audience, and that's just how they've evolved.
Yeah, some people call them FECs. Some people still just call them trampoline parks, but they are
an active FEC.
Yeah, they've evolved. So If I had the opportunity to buy an old park right now and just move it to another building, like I wouldn't go anywhere near it. So,
Yeah.
or even just buy an old park and operate it as is, I'd be very hesitant. So, a lot of things are changing in the landscape. So,
We did with our Kamloops property. We took over an old park and
we've gutted it.
yeah. Even to reopen,
So,
it was a full rebrand, and we renovated every section of that park that was there, and we added to it. And then since then, we've gone back and taken even the stuff that we renovated, the existing equipment, we've ripped that out and replaced it with our own.
yeah.
So
Well, and I've got a video on my LinkedIn profile of exactly that when we were on site in Kamloops, walking through, just showing some of the things we were changing, some of the trampoline styles, some of the wall padding, making it compliant, like all kinds of things. So you got to have the expertise, and you got to hit these on a case by case basis, or get your building inspector code consultant in, and they'll give you a list of things you got to update. So,
what code consultant knows about trampoline parks?
oh, it's a mess right now. Yeah. And the ones I know of, they all charge a lot of money. So,
Yeah.
yeah, there's no cheap way around it. You're basically going to be into one of these places for over $1 million. There's no real way around it. Otherwise, it's not going to be viable.
You
So,
couldn't build a 10,000 square foot park for $1 million.
yeah, it's just too well. Me used equipment, I'm thinking, but
Oh,
even trying to raise that up
Oh.
to spec and everything, like you wouldn't want to go there.
most of
So,
it's welded together, or like, look at, we had to take saws to pull out the last pile of stuff.
yeah,
We didn't have the luxury of using a plasma cutter because
it was in a mall.
it was in a mall, so much dust, so much, fire hazard. But
Yeah, imagine that insurance hit if you shut down the mall and evacuate
Oh.
all the businesses in the mall, and the cold work only, no hot work.
thank the dear sweet Lord for that battery operated van. So,
Yeah.
oh man, that was.
So the things to be aware of, but it's like start asking. So these are some of the common points, but everything's case by case. So it really depends on what you're looking at, whether it's old equipment, new equipment, what your market size is, what your building size is, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure it's like a lot of things, but it's like if you start with demographics, then you got to find the right space, right? And landlords can be dicks too, so you got to find the right partner there. We have the luxury now of we've got a few parks, like we can now wait, and rather than being stuck on a certain market, we can look at a handful of markets and pick the best deal that comes up. So that's a luxury that I can't take for granted, and we have one right now that's like a potential landlord's a buddy of mine. It's like, hey, I got this space, this other tenant's gone, and in a month, like it's going to be open space, and it's a viable option. So, and that's one big check mark is like the demographics are there, the city size is there, the landlord's not a dick, and and we can go. So my schedule's free mid-April. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
so these are all as important considerations, but if you have questions, just start asking, and go to some of these trade shows. I reluctantly say this, but talk to franchise organizations. I'm not a big fan of franchise organizations just because I'm personally kind of cheap, but yeah.
It's not the Wild West of trampoline park days anymore though. So like it's not everything's just going to fly. There's enough, I guess, bad horror stories out there. Like landlords are a little more up on their heels. Like they got their guard up. The insurance is up on their, like the first park I insured $10,000. That doesn't exist anymore.
No.
And they didn't know what
That's
the
our
trampoline park
property
was.
coverage nowadays.
Yeah. They were like, "You're the builder." I'm like, "Yes." Okay. If you're gonna build and maintain this equipment, we'll give you a policy. But yeah, that was 2013. So
If you do look the level of franchises as well, like do your research, because we won't name any names, good or bad, but there's everything you can imagine. There's bad franchisors out there, and there's good
Yeah.
franchisors, and you just got to do your research to find which one you want to be aligned with. Yeah. Or reach out to us and ask us. So
yeah, if we won't do it, we'll set you up with the guys that do.
I think that's the biggest thing is the demographic size and the building size. It's a cold reality. And a lot of people got to come to terms with that. Like if you don't have $1.5-2 million kicking around to invest, don't even bother.
Yeah, when we started, we were 22 with a pocket full of dreams and a good work ethic.
A bunch of borrowed money.
Yeah, a bunch of borrowed money, but the ability to press reset if we needed to. And now we're, 12 years later, we don't have that luxury anymore. So,
Well, it's a changing market.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more regulation kicking in. There's a lot more scrutiny in the industry, and you just got to be prepared for it. So especially if you're going to a major city. So you get away with a lot more in a smaller town, but you hit 500,000 people or a stringent neighborhood or somewhere in Pennsylvania, for example, and they're gonna be reviewing what you're doing. So yeah. Actually,
Cool.
so one final point. I was on an ASTM call or a regulatory call today, and this actually came up. Operator wanted to open, and then after opening, they were in Pennsylvania. After opening, add a new attraction because they knew it wasn't compliant. And it's like, oh man, like there's a bunch of regulators on the call. It's like they've got to be kidding, because it's like that's one of the few states where it's like you just don't do that. Like they will randomly show up on your doorstep on a Monday afternoon just for shits and giggles to shut you down for something non-compliant. I fielded too many calls on, hey, I've got to park in Pennsylvania. Oh yeah, here we go. Like
It's because they've probably seen some horror stories. They've been a big population center where things that have taken off early, and you've had bad operators and bad equipment, and that's just a bad
Well,
recipe for a disaster.
Pennsylvania is a tight state. Like there's tight
Yeah.
states and there's loose states, and yeah, you got to do your research. So,
That's fair. Yeah.
because even if you got your building permit and you're open and operating, like that's no clear sailing. So they can knock on your door any day, time, and they will. So
Well, there's a recent one. It was not a park. It's like some type of training facility, but like I started seeing questions about certain things, and someone wanted a trampoline that had like a notch taken out of it. And then there's like 3 trampolines going to one undersized airbag. And it's like, I almost regretted asking questions, because the more I asked questions, it was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to touch this job. Like, I don't know, where is this going? If this is going in someone's basement, like, okay.
we see some funky stuff. We get asked, yeah, do things right the first time.
Yeah.
So yeah, with that, ask questions if you don't know, and we hope this added value.